The crane was screaming like a wounded animal when Tyler found me in the break room. Red warning lights strobing across his pale face, alarm beeping every 10 seconds from the main floor. He looked like he'd just watched his career catch fire. "Marcus, thank God you're here. The overhead crane just locked up and nobody knows what's wrong." I took another sip of my coffee. Good coffee, the kind I'd been brewing myself every morning for 15 years before anyone else showed up. "That's a problem," I said. "Can you fix it?" His voice had that desperate edge people get when they realize the GPS is broken and they never learn to read maps. "Sure can. How long will it take?" I glanced at my watch. 9:47 a.m. "Well, that's a full system reset. Need to coordinate with shipping, clear the floor, run diagnostics, maybe call for parts. Rest of the day, probably." Tyler's face went white. That crane handled 60% of our daily throughput. Without it, we were looking at missed deliveries, angry customers, and a lot of explaining to corporate. But this never happens," he stammered. "Actually, it happens every few months. I just used to catch it during the morning equipment check." "What morning equipment check?" I stood up, tossed my coffee cup in the trash, and walked toward the warehouse. "The one I used to do at 6:40 a.m., back when I arrived early." That's how Tyler Madison learned the difference between managing and actually running something. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how this whole thing started. The name's Marcus Thompson, 48 years old. I've been the facilities operations manager at this regional distribution center for 15 years. Before that, 20 years in the Army as a staff sergeant. You learn a thing or two about keeping operations running smooth when people's lives depend on it. For 15 years, I'd been the guy who turned the lights on every morning. Not metaphorically, literally. Every weekday at 6:30 sharp, I'd unlock the doors, punch in my security code, and flip the switches that brought the whole operation to life. HVAC systems humming, loading dock doors cycling through their morning checks, generator backup tests running clean. All before anyone else's truck even pulled into the parking lot. Nobody ever questioned how everything was always ready to go. They just figured the facility ran itself. By 6:45, I'd have the equipment diagnostics pulled, safety logs reviewed, and vendor access codes updated for the day's deliveries. The crane calibration that prevented exactly the kind of failure Tyler was staring at right now, that happened at 6:40, every single morning. This isn't some feel-good story about military values or dedication. This is about what happens when some hotshot kid thinks he knows better than the guy who's been keeping the wheels turning since before he graduated high school. Tyler Madison, 29 years old, MBA from some fancy school, brought in as our new regional operations director. Corporate sent him down like a Christmas present nobody asked for. 3-piece suits, designer watch, the kind of confidence you only get from never having to fix something with your own hands. He'd arrived 3 weeks ago with all the enthusiasm of a new convert. First week was spent assessing operational flows and identifying optimization opportunities. Week 2 brought alignment meetings where he used the word synergy so many times I started keeping count, got up to 23 in 1 hour. But it was week 3 when Tyler decided I was the problem. I'd been checking the loading dock hydraulics, routine maintenance that keeps us from having a 10-ton door crash down on somebody's head, when I heard expensive shoes clicking on concrete. Tyler appeared in his pressed khakis and company polo, holding a tablet like it was the Constitution. "Marcus, got a minute?" "Sure thing." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and followed him to his office. He didn't offer me a seat, just leaned against his desk like he was posing for LinkedIn. The walls behind him were covered with printouts of charts and graphs I'd never seen before. Probably something about key performance indicators or productivity metrics. "So, couple of folks mentioned you come in pretty early." I nodded. 6:30. He gave this little laugh that wasn't actually a laugh. The kind managers practice in the mirror before difficult conversations. "Look, your dedication's great, don't get me wrong, but showing up at dawn kind of makes the rest of the team look bad, you know?" I waited. In the Army, you learn when to keep your mouth shut and let the other guy keep talking. Usually works out better that way. "Just trying to maintain team consistency," he continued, straightening his collar. "How about we stick to arriving at 9 with everyone else? Work smarter, not harder, right?" There it was. The kid who'd never changed a hydraulic filter in his life was telling me how to manage a facility I'd been running since he was in middle school. The same facility that hadn't had a single equipment failure, safety incident, or missed delivery in over 3 years. "Roger that," I said. He seemed pleased. like he'd just solved world hunger. Great. Glad we're on the same page. I walked out of there thinking about something my old drill sergeant used to say. Give a man enough rope and he'll hang himself with it. Tyler had just handed me the whole hardware store. See, here's what Tyler didn't understand about routines. You don't notice them until they're gone. My 6:30 arrival wasn't about showing off or making anyone look bad. It was about the 47 things that needed to happen before 9 a.m. for the day to run right. Things like unlocking vendor access gates, running equipment diagnostics, coordinating with the night security handoff, updating the daily safety briefing board, checking backup generator fuel levels, calibrating the overhead crane, resetting the loading dock pressure systems, and reviewing overnight incident reports. Little things. Critical things. The kind of stuff that doesn't make it into job descriptions because everyone assumes it just happens. Well, Tyler wanted consistency. He was about to get it. That Friday, I went home and pulled out the black composition notebook I kept for facility documentation. 15 years of notes, system quirks, equipment specifications, vendor contact information, and troubleshooting procedures that existed nowhere else. I'd been meaning to formalize it all into proper manuals, but there was always something more urgent to handle. On a fresh page, I wrote daily operations log and started listing everything that happened during my early hours. 6:30 a.m., facility unlock and security sweep. 6:35 a.m., equipment diagnostics and startup sequence. 6:40 a.m., crane calibration and safety checks. 6:45 a.m., vendor coordination and dock assignments. 6:50 a.m., HVAC system verification and adjustment. 6:55 a.m., daily briefing prep and incident review. 7 o'clock a.m., night shift handoff and issue escalation. 7:15 a.m., facility status report generation. 7:30 a.m., safety equipment inspection. 7:45 a.m., backup system testing. Each item represented something I'd done quietly for 15 years. Each one was about to become Tyler's problem. Monday morning, 8:58 a.m. Strange feeling, sitting in my truck in the parking lot, sipping coffee I'd made at home, watching the loading dock through my windshield. For 15 years, I'd been the first one through those doors. Now I was just another employee following company policy. At exactly 9 o'clock, I walked in. The main warehouse was dim, emergency lighting only, because the full system startup I usually triggered at 6:35 hadn't happened. The loading dock control panel blinked red error codes like an angry Christmas tree. Hydraulic pressure warning, door alignment fault, backup generator offline. I walked right past it all. "Morning, Marcus," called Jerry from the day crew, heading toward his forklift. "Dock 3's acting up again. You want me to call maintenance?" "Better check with Tyler on that," I said, keeping my pace steady. "He's handling operational decisions now." Jerry looked confused but shrugged and kept walking. I took the long way to my office, past the vendor staging area where 3 delivery trucks were already backed up because nobody had unlocked the access gates. Past the safety station where yesterday's incident report sat unprocessed because I hadn't done the morning review that kept us in OSHA compliance. Past the main electrical panel where a yellow warning light indicated the backup generator hadn't completed its weekly test cycle. Tyler's door was closed, probably reviewing his analytics dashboards while the real world fell apart outside his window. I powered up my computer and waited for it to boot, something that usually happened while most people were still brushing their teeth. No early equipment checks, no vendor coordination calls, no safety briefing updates. The facility status report that typically landed on Tyler's desk by 7:15 didn't exist. Not until well after 9 o'clock anyway. Around 9:30, Tyler strolled past my office holding his tablet, looking like a man who thought the world ran on PowerPoint presentations. His confident stride from 3 weeks ago had developed a slight hitch, like someone walking on ice they couldn't see. "Hey Marcus, when you get a chance, could you prioritize the morning briefing? Some of the supervisors are asking about dock availability." I looked up from my computer screen. "The 9 a.m. briefing?" "Well, whenever you usually do it. I usually did it at 6:45, but that was when I arrived at 6:30. His smile flickered for just a second, like a fluorescent bulb going bad. Then he nodded and walked away. By 10 a.m., Shift Supervisor Pete was at my desk asking why the hydraulic pressure readings weren't updated on the daily board. By 11, Lisa from shipping wanted to know where the vendor delivery schedule was. By noon, 3 different people had asked about equipment that was showing offline in the system because nobody had run the morning diagnostic cycle. I just kept typing, doing exactly what was in my job description. Nothing more, nothing less. Around 1 p.m. I heard Tyler's voice echoing from the warehouse floor. He was talking to Jerry, and his tone had lost that casual confidence from the morning. "What do you mean the crane's been acting funny all day?" "Just little things," Jerry replied. "Stutters when it picks up a heavy load. Makes this grinding noise when it swivels left. Nothing major, but Marcus usually catches that stuff before it becomes a problem." "Well, why didn't you tell me earlier? Figured you knew." "Marcus always handles the equipment stuff." I opened my notebook and added the first entry under consequences observed. Crane performance degradation, no morning calibration performed. That's the thing about being the invisible foundation. The moment you stop holding everything up, people finally notice the building's shaking. They just don't always realize what's causing the tremors. Tuesday was when the cracks really started to show. Tuesday morning brought the first real crisis. I walked in at 9:02 to find Tyler standing in the warehouse looking like he'd seen a ghost. The overhead crane was locked in emergency stop mode, red lights flashing, alarm beeping every 10 seconds. A forklift operator stood nearby looking confused, and 3 shipping supervisors were clustered around the control panel like mourners at a funeral. This was the scene I'd started the story with, but now you understand how we got here. Marcus, thank God. This thing just seized up and nobody knows how to reset it. I glanced at the control panel. Standard daily calibration failure. Happens when the morning system check doesn't run properly. I'd been preventing it for 15 years with a simple diagnostic routine at 6:40 a.m. Takes about 5 minutes to run, catches drift in the weight sensors before they compound into system errors. Interesting, I said. Tyler waited for me to do something. When I didn't move toward the controls, he got that look people get when they realize the parachute isn't opening and they never read the manual. "So, can you fix it?" "Sure can. It's in my job scope." "Great. How long will it take?" I checked my watch and pulled out my notebook, flipping to a page marked Emergency Procedures. Made a show of reading it carefully, though I knew the process by heart. System reset takes about 20 minutes, but I'll need to coordinate with shipping to clear the floor first. Safety protocol. Then maintenance needs to verify the hydraulics haven't been damaged by the hard stop. Safety department requires an incident report for any emergency shutdown. And if the calibration drift caused internal damage, we might need parts. How long total? Rest of the day, probably. Maybe tomorrow morning if we need to order components. His face went pale. That crane handled 60% of our daily throughput. Without it, we were looking at missed deliveries, angry customers, overtime costs, and a lot of explaining to corporate. Parts? What kind of parts? Won't know until I run full diagnostics. Of course, if we'd caught this in the morning equipment check, would have been a 5-minute adjustment. Tyler's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on dry land. I walked to my office and updated my notebook. Crane emergency shutdown, 9:47 a.m., Tuesday. Estimated downtime, 6 to 8 hours. Cause, missed morning calibration check. That afternoon brought a parade of problems. The loading dock hydraulics on Bay 4 started cycling randomly because the pressure sensors hadn't been reset overnight. The backup generator failed its weekly test because nobody had checked the fuel levels. 3 vendors couldn't access the delivery area because their security codes hadn't been updated. Each issue took Tyler longer to address than it should have because he didn't know the systems. He spent 2 hours on the phone with the hydraulic contractor before discovering the fix was a simple manual reset. Something I could have done in 30 seconds if I'd been there during my usual morning routine. By 3 p.m., I had an email from Patricia Williams, our CEO. Subject, facility status clarification needed. Apparently, 3 customers had called about delayed shipments. The insurance company was asking about our equipment maintenance records after someone reported the crane incident. And corporate safety wanted to know why our daily briefings were suddenly 2 days behind schedule. Tyler had CC'd me on his response. Investigating operational inconsistencies. Will provide comprehensive update shortly. I didn't reply. Instead, I added another entry to my notebook. Executive inquiry. Operational failures attributed to inconsistencies by management. Wednesday morning, my phone started buzzing at 6:45. Tyler's name on the caller ID. I watched it ring 4 times, then go to voicemail. He called back at 6:52, then 7:03, then 7:18, each voicemail more frantic than the last. First, message. Hey Marcus, could you give me a call when you get this? Second, Marcus, we've got some equipment issues this morning. Need you to come in early if possible. Third, Marcus, this is urgent. The whole system's going crazy, and I can't figure out what's wrong. I arrived at 9:01 to find him pacing the warehouse floor like a caged animal. The crane was still down from yesterday. 2 more pieces of equipment were showing fault codes on the status board, and 5 vendors were staged outside the locked delivery gates because nobody had updated their morning access permissions. Marcus, where have you been? I've been calling all morning. I was following protocol, I said calmly. 9 a.m. start time per your directive. Look, we've got serious issues here. I need you to get these systems back online ASAP. I pulled out my notebook and flipped to a fresh page, making notes while he watched. Let me get the status. Crane's been down since Tuesday, correct? And you need the hydraulic diagnostics run on docks 2 and 4? Plus vendor access updates and safety system checks? Yes. All of it. Roger. I'll start with the crane calibration, then move to dock systems. Should have everything running by... I paused to calculate, tapping my pen against the page. End of day Friday, assuming no parts delays. Tyler's face went red. Friday? We can't wait until Friday. Well, normally I'd have caught these issues in the morning checks, but those were happening during my old schedule. The silence stretched between us like a broken cable under tension. Can't you just come in early tomorrow? Just this once? I looked at him with the same expression I used to give new recruits who asked if they could skip rifle maintenance because it was raining. Tyler, you specifically told me that arriving early made the team look bad. I'm just following your guidance on maintaining consistency. He opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to realize the trap he'd built for himself. Thursday morning brought the reckoning. Thursday morning I walked in at 9 o'clock sharp to find Tyler's office packed with people. Through the glass walls I could see Patricia Williams, our CEO, Richard Sterling, the VP of Operations, Helen Carter from HR, and Tyler, looking like a man who'd just realized his parachute was made of tissue paper. The crane was still down, the loading docks were running at half capacity, and somewhere in the corporate office phones were ringing with complaints from customers whose shipments were sitting in our broken facility instead of heading down the highway. Marcus, Patricia called out when she spotted me walking past. Could you join us for a moment? I grabbed my notebook and walked in. The room felt like a courtroom, and Tyler was clearly the defendant. Patricia got straight to the point. Tyler's been explaining the operational issues we've been having. 3 days of equipment failures, vendor delays, safety compliance gaps. He says there's been some confusion about responsibilities. I nodded. Yes, ma'am. Richard Sterling leaned forward. He was one of those executives who'd worked his way up from the floor, still had calluses on his hands from his early years running equipment. Tyler mentioned you've changed your arrival schedule recently. That's correct. Per Tyler's direction, I adjusted my start time to 9 a.m. for team consistency. Sterling's eyebrows went up. And before that? 6:30 a.m. For the past 15 years. Patricia looked at Tyler, then back at me. What exactly were you doing between 6:30 and 9? I opened my notebook and read the list. Every item, every system check, every safety protocol, every coordination task that kept the facility running smooth. The room got quieter with each entry. Equipment diagnostics and startup sequence, I read, crane calibration and safety checks, vendor coordination and dock assignments, HVAC system verification, backup generator testing, daily briefing preparation, night shift handoff and issue escalation, facility status report generation, safety equipment inspection. When I finished, you could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Patricia asked, did anyone else know about these procedures? No, ma'am. They weren't in any manual, just things that needed doing. Tyler tried to rally, his voice pitched higher than usual. The thing is, we need to modernize these processes. Can't have everything depending on one person's unofficial procedures. Patricia's voice went ice cold. Unofficial procedures? Marcus, how long have you been preventing these equipment failures? 15 years, ma'am, since the day I started. Sterling pulled out his phone and started scrolling through data. I'm looking at our maintenance records. We've had exactly 0 crane failures in the past decade. Our safety rating is 99.7%. Customer complaint rate under 2%. Facility uptime consistently above industry standard. The room went dead silent except for the distant beeping of that crane alarm that had been going off for 3 days straight. Patricia turned to Tyler. "You told a 15-year employee to stop doing the job that's kept this facility operational?" Tyler's mouth moved, but no words came out. He looked like he was trying to solve calculus with crayons. "Furthermore," Sterling continued, "according to our productivity metrics, this facility has been one of our top performers for the past 5 years. 0 safety incidents, minimal downtime, exceptional customer satisfaction scores." Patricia stood up. "Helen, I need to see Tyler in HR immediately. Richard, start documenting all of Marcus's procedures right now. We need this knowledge preserved properly." She turned to me. "Marcus, I owe you an apology. We clearly misunderstood how this facility actually operates." After everyone else filed out, Patricia stayed behind. "How long would it take to get everything back to normal?" she asked. "If I start tomorrow at 6:30? 2 days to catch up on deferred maintenance, maybe 3 to get all vendor relationships back on track?" She nodded. "Consider it approved. And, Marcus, we're going to need you to train someone on these procedures. Can't have all this institutional knowledge sitting with one person." "Happy to, ma'am. Just need the right person who understands that some things can't be learned from a PowerPoint presentation." She almost smiled at that. "I think we can find someone." "Tyler?" Never saw him again after that HR meeting. Heard through the grapevine that he'd been transitioned to other opportunities. Corporate speak for "don't let the door hit you on the way out." 6 months later, I'm training Carl Brooks, 25 years old, fresh out of technical school, but with the right attitude. He asks good questions, takes notes, doesn't assume he knows better than 15 years of experience. "Why do you check the crane calibration first thing?" he asked me yesterday morning. "Because if it drifts overnight and you don't catch it, you're looking at a seized system by noon." Learned that the hard way in my second week here. He wrote it down just like he writes down everything else I teach him. The facility's humming along smooth as ever. Equipment failures back down to practically 0. Safety rating holding steady. And every morning when I flip those switches and watch the place come to life, I remember what my old drill sergeant used to say. The most dangerous person in any organization is the one who thinks they know better than the person actually doing the job. Tyler learned that lesson the hard way. Me? I just kept doing what I'd always done, keeping the lights on for everyone else. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people see what happens when you stop cleaning up their messes. Turns out when you take away the foundation, the whole building comes down pretty quick. And that's how a fancy MBA learned that some things you can't optimize, analyze, or synergize. Sometimes you just need the guy who knows where all the switches are.